The year is 1917. Tsarist Russia, ravaged by war and inequality, is ripe for revolution. Enter Vladimir Lenin, a fervent revolutionary. With his Bolshevik party, he seized power. Their goal? To build a socialist utopia. Thus began the Soviet Union, a vast empire stretching from the Baltic Sea to the Pacific Ocean. It was a new era, a bold experiment in social engineering. The early years were turbulent. Civil war raged, pitting the Bolsheviks against their opponents. Famine stalked the land, but Lenin, a shrewd strategist, prevailed. He implemented a new economic policy allowing some private enterprise to revive the economy. This was a temporary compromise, a tactical retreat from pure communism. After Lenin's death in 1924, a power struggle erupted. Joseph Stalin, a ruthless and ambitious figure, emerged victorious. He consolidated his power, crushing any opposition. His reign ushered in an era of terror and paranoia. Millions perished in purges and forced labor camps. Stalin's iron fist reshaped Soviet society for better or worse. However, Stalin also oversaw rapid industrialization. He collectivized agriculture, forcing peasants onto collective farms. This brutal policy aimed to modernize farming but resulted in widespread famine. Despite the human cost, the Soviet Union transformed into an industrial powerhouse. It was a nation forged in the crucible of revolution, a testament to the enduring power of ideology. Stalin's successors, while less brutal, continued his policies of centralized control. The Soviet Union became a superpower, rivaling the United States. Its planned economy, though inefficient, produced impressive results. Heavy industries boomed, churning out steel, coal, and machinery. Education and healthcare were free, though quality varied. Life in the Soviet Union was a mixed bag. Citizens enjoyed basic necessities, but consumer goods were scarce. Freedom of speech was curtailed, dissent ruthlessly suppressed. The KGB, the state security apparatus, was omnipresent. Fear was a constant companion. Yet, there was also a sense of collective purpose, a belief in building a better future. The Soviet Union invested heavily in science and technology. It launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, in 1957, shocking the world. Yuri Gagarin, a Soviet cosmonaut, became the first human in space in 1961. These achievements showcased Soviet technological prowess, boosting national pride. Soviet culture, though heavily censored, produced notable works of literature, music, and art. Writers like Boris Pasternak and Alexander Solzhenitsyn, despite persecution, gave voice to the human condition under Soviet rule. Their works, often smuggled out of the country, resonated with readers worldwide. The Soviet Union's foray into space was a testament to its scientific and technological capabilities. The launch of Sputnik, a small, beeping sphere, sent shockwaves across the globe. It was a potent symbol of Soviet ingenuity, a challenge to American dominance. The space race had begun. Yuri Gagarin's historic flight further cemented the Soviet Union's position as a space pioneer. His 108-minute journey around the Earth captivated the world. Gagarin became an instant hero, a symbol of human achievement. These early triumphs fueled Soviet ambitions for further exploration. The Soviet Union continued to push the boundaries of space exploration. They launched the first woman into space, Valentina Tereshkova, in 1963. They conducted the first spacewalk in 1965. Their unmanned probes explored the Moon and Venus. These achievements showcased Soviet technological prowess, boosting national pride. However, the Soviet space program also faced setbacks. A series of launch failures and accidents tarnished their image. The race to the Moon, ultimately won by the United States, proved a costly and demoralizing defeat. Despite these setbacks, the Soviet Union's legacy in space exploration remains significant. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, a decision that would prove disastrous. The aim was to prop up a communist regime facing internal rebellion. However, the Soviets underestimated the Afghan people's fierce resistance. The rugged terrain and determined Mujahideen fighters turned Afghanistan into a Soviet quagmire. The war dragged on for a decade, draining Soviet resources and morale. The Mujahideen, supported by the United States and other countries, waged a relentless guerrilla war. Soviet casualties mounted and public opinion at home turned against the conflict. It became the Soviet Union's Vietnam. The Afghan war exposed the limitations of Soviet military power. Their tanks and aircraft proved ineffective against the elusive Mujahideen. The conflict also highlighted the inherent weaknesses of the Soviet economy. The cost of the war, coupled with declining oil prices, strained the Soviet system. In 1989, the Soviet Union withdrew from Afghanistan, defeated and demoralized. The war had left an indelible mark on the Soviet psyche. It contributed to a growing sense of disillusionment and a loss of faith in the communist system. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union was a superpower in decline. Decades of economic mismanagement, political repression, and costly foreign adventures had taken their toll. The system was stagnant, unable to meet the needs of its people. A new leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, came to power in 1985, determined to reform the ailing system. Gorbachev introduced two key reforms: perestroika, or restructuring, and glasnost, or openness. Perestroika aimed to revitalize the economy by introducing limited market mechanisms. Glasnost encouraged greater freedom of speech and transparency. These reforms, while well-intentioned, unleashed forces beyond Gorbachev's control. The winds of change swept across the Soviet Empire. Nationalist movements, long suppressed, resurfaced with renewed vigor. Eastern European satellite states, yearning for freedom, broke away from Soviet control. The Berlin Wall, a potent symbol of division, crumbled in 1989. In 1991, a group of hardline communists attempted a coup against Gorbachev. The coup failed, but it fatally weakened the Soviet state. On December 25, 1991, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. The once mighty empire had crumbled, leaving behind a patchwork of independent states. The collapse of the Soviet Union was a momentous event, reshaping the geopolitical landscape. It marked the end of the Cold War, a decades-long ideological struggle between the Soviet Union and the United States. The world breathed a collective sigh of relief as the threat of nuclear annihilation receded. The former Soviet republics embarked on their own paths, some embracing democracy and capitalism, others struggling with instability and authoritarianism. Russia, the largest and most powerful of the former republics, inherited the Soviet Union's nuclear arsenal and its seat on the United Nations Security Council. The legacy of the Soviet Union is complex and multifaceted. It was a system that achieved remarkable feats in science, technology, and social welfare, but at a terrible human cost. Its collapse serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, economic stagnation, and political repression. Today, the echoes of the Soviet Empire can still be felt. The scars of its tumultuous history are etched in the memories of those who lived through it. Its rise and fall offer valuable lessons for understanding the complexities of ideology, power, and the human condition.